Session 670, Deleted Portion. Now, please do not interrupt. If you have questions, I will answer them later this evening. And if you want, you can have an extra session for book dictation. Robert feels that he has a dragon by the tail. He is damned if he will let go, and yet he is afraid to pull harder. You can specifically say that this has to do with what you call your psychic work. But even before it began, he was aware of that energy of his, concerned about using it, focusing it, delighted with it, and afraid of it at the same time. Even in his poetry, before our work, it always led him at certain times way beyond himself. He tried to hold himself down because he felt that the energy was so strong that allowed freedom in almost any direction. It would bring him in conflict with the morals and ways of other people. He is literally a great receiver of energy. He attracts it, and it must therefore then go through him, translated into experience outward. He is himself. He cannot turn himself off or his abilities off. It is only when you make a differentiation, and basically an artificial one, between other nature abilities and the psychic ones, that you think of his psychic activities as a conflict. In whatever level of activity he focused his energy, his activities would be strong, exaggerated in terms of others by comparison. He is a great mystic. Naturally, that is a great mystic, and that is reflected through his poetry as well as our specific work. So that expression will come through poetry also with its psychedelic experience, regardless of our specific sessions. Had he been, for example, a great actor, he would have met the same kind of problem in different form. Greater recognition might help at a certain level, but this is not the answer. The fact that psychic books, so-called, do not give him what he thinks of as conventional literary praise is annoying, but not basically pertinent. He has been using the symptoms indeed as breaks. These breaks have been applied in what you think of as the psychic arena, because that is the chosen situation. It is not physical mobility that worries him, but inner mobility. He is afraid to go ahead, feeling it not safe, yet he is damned if he will retreat, and for that matter, he realizes that there is no retreat from your own knowledge and experience. He has been afraid to use his abilities freely, and therefore set up physical conditions that remind him constantly of his body and objective physical life, for fear that he will go too far beyond it. He uses the radio often as physical noise to bring him back and serve as a guideline in altered states of consciousness. He has been using the static of physical discordance in the same way. Now, many creative people unfortunately do the same thing. On an entirely different level, one of your old favorites, Peggy Lee, has severe physical difficulties that are meant actually to contain her energy and force it along certain lines only. Whenever Ruber opens to the dream state, physically, he is specifically worried about out-of-body travel. That was a challenge, and his own did not frighten him, but those of others did. His own did bring him up short momentarily, but that he could have handled. It is no use saying you wish no psychic development had occurred. It is like saying you wish a tree was a violet, or vice versa. The experience is his nature. This nature also required precise and yet flexible and free manipulation. This is acquired naturally through experience, through the experience of being himself. When he began to cut off his nature's spontaneous expression in dream reality, out-of-body travel, he denied himself the acquisition of that facility to some degree. Then he applied the brakes physically. The free flow of his experience goes rather easily and incidentally, safely and exuberantly from what you think of as objective and subjective experience, and his creative gifts then make subjective knowledge objective in terms of art. It is then, again, the spontaneity of his own being that alternately delights and appalls him. I have said little about astrology, yet he chose to be born under that earth sign. Ram noted Taurus. They said it is one, for reasons, incidentally, that I will give you at a later time, that brings the flowering of ability later years, and that also provides when strong talents are present, a conservative countering measure. Now, I told you that each day provides the answers to your problems, and each night. Robert's answer, therefore, is to go ahead with his own nature freely. Practically, this does not involve our sessions. He is not afraid of them. It does involve his own private experience, opening up to himself, freeing the flow of his energy. There are several ways this can be done. It is his freely allowed subjective experience now that results in books, mine and Seven's. He has set up barriers, however, against his own personal inner mobility. It is extremely important that he become more permissive, particularly in the dream state, and to change his attitude about dreaming, to go along with his experience and forget how he can make it understandable to others. When he allows the experience, his creative abilities will translate it. He has been afraid of letting himself go and utilizing his energies fully, not objectively but subjectively. He has nothing to be frightened of. His greatest achievements lie in that direction. Now take your break, and I will have some specific recommendations. Now I am telling you facts. Do not put terms like fortunate or unfortunate onto them. You, however, also expected Robert to put on brakes, and for some time acquiesced, as he did. You wanted what you thought of as adequate discipline maintained, and in other areas as well. The symptoms served secondary purposes afterward, and in all honesty for both of you. You were not sure if you wanted to go on tours. The symptoms gave you breathing space. You each had an excuse ready-made. You were also worried about Robert's spontaneity in psychic matters, and for a while quite approved of the sudden breaks. Both of you to varying extents now were willing to put up with the disadvantages involved, and still to some extent you both feel the same way. It is the effects you both do not like, and that is all. It is true that Robert's ideas predominate, that his reality is his, but yours is a part of it, as his is a part of yours. He felt, therefore, that you did approve of the overall idea, if not particularly the methods. And in the beginning, you approved those in your own way. You did not want Robert sick, but you did want brakes applied, and he chose the method. He chose the method for various reasons. From his experience, he had seen you drag your feet, applying brakes to a situation, and identifying with you, and not with his mother. His choice the same means. Because of his own characteristic method he used then, the means, in his way differently than you did. There is no doubt, regardless of what you think, that you also acquiesced, though thinking that Rupert went too far. It is only when he goes too far that either of you get upset. A less determined personality would have drawn back, shriveled, and denied its own abilities. Rupert did not do that, and you would not have acquiesced to that. So your joint and private reality does not include it. Now, practically, I am making some suggestions. They apply now, as the situation stands, taking your nature and Rupert's into consideration. He normally and naturally awakens often in the early hours and does not get up because his body is too sore in his turns, but he spontaneously feels an alliance with himself and those hours, and intuitively knows that his creative abilities are strong then, and his dream recall good. I want him to come over here, Rob noted, to the living room. They said, make his coffee or whatever, be alone with himself and follow his impulses, to write or whatever, and to recall his dream experiences. You must let him know that you do trust him and his spontaneity, because before, no matter what you say, he knew that to some degree you wanted breaks applied. A daily walk is imperative and a symbol, you see, of walking inward. Also a nap in which subjective experience is freely suggested. The inner challenges faced will be nothing. He will realize his safety and ability, but the challenge cannot be put off. Before he sleeps, he should remind himself of his nature gift of inner mobility and encourage dream experience and recall. This alone provides the meeting of inner and outer, the true mobility. You must let him know that you do trust his spontaneity, for it is also your own, as you know. Let him know also you are there, in a strange manner, not to be given this evening. Your own painting mobility is involved. I am not saying that his reality is not his own, that he does not have the joy and responsibility for it, but that you also share a joint reality. Your confidence will increase his. Let him know, therefore, that you do trust him to go ahead spontaneously, regardless of where that might lead, knowing it will be beneficial and creative. The recommendations I gave to him should also be followed despite and precisely because of any physical resistance. In the beginning, for example, he may not want to move. Now, tell him that I will look out for him in all of his dream and or out-of-body journeys. His creative output will be vastly improved, particularly in quality. I will have other recommendations after these are followed for a week. Now, I will end our session. If you want an extra book session, you may have it this weekend. If you have questions, I will answer them whenever you want. Now, Seven gave Rupert the same information in a different way.